Yes, correct.
Edmund Maciejewski, 40 Ralph Place. So I have my questions, just too loud. My questions on resolution number 8 for the redevelopment study for the property located at 311 Springfield Avenue. That's where the senior living place was that's been
The old nursing
home.
yellow
whatever that- yeah.
next to the bank.
Yes, great.
Correct.
Glad to see that they're finally doing something with that. But at the same time, what are the specific goals of the redevelopment study?
It's to just, view it in terms of the zoning, make sure that we have a use that's appropriate for, that zone. I think it's I'm not going to try to guess. I can't recall. And to sort of move forward to make sure that it is, isn't any longer dilapidated. That was really the ultimate goal.
And do you know what's being proposed to be built there?
There's really nothing that's been proposed. I know maybe 4 years ago, we had an attorney come in and wanted to put additional housing, was not a good fit, and we never heard from them, in about 4 years. I think that was 2019.
So what would be the justification for the redevelopment study then?
That's the means in which we would have to go at it because we're not the property owners. That's the means in which we would have to go in terms of the zoning and like looking at it is to legally do a redevelopment study. And Alex, jump in if I'm misrepresenting, or you can add to that a little.
You're required to refer to the planning board for them to conduct a determination on whether or not it should be deemed an area in need of redevelopment according to the criteria of the local housing and rehabilitation law, redevelopment law, sorry. And once that happens and it's recommended back to the council to be deemed an area in need of redevelopment, the council will deem it an area, if it applies, will deem it an area in need of redevelopment. After that, a redevelopment plan is created. So initially you just start out by looking at whether it meets the criteria of an area in need of redevelopment, regardless of what might go there.
But what, I mean, in the past, why is that? That's not illegal. You don't legally have to do that. That's something that's being pushed by the town. It's not a legal requirement. So if there's zoning or something else, I mean, they would have zoned for whatever, maybe a 10 apartments possibly, whatever they are legally allowed to zone for. That would be the normal zoning. But the redevelopment would allow to bypass a lot of, safety checks.
That's not correct. They still have to go in for full site plan approval as they would have to in a normal application.
Are the residents denied any kind of,
But it'll be the same hearing before the planning board.
so the residents are allowed to have a referendum on anything that's in the local redevelopment and housing law? Well, I'm just saying, if the residents, where I'm going, I've seen this before. And I know with anything that's going through the local housing and redevelopment law, that the residents completely lose any official say in the matter. They can't question any aspect of it. It's part of the law. And this has been used in the town before to build a lot of apartments, to build this building as well, where we were denied a referendum from that.
Not necessarily true. That requires multiple public hearings, both before the planning board and the council.
Okay, so
Plan approval.
we will still have our right to referendum if need be on anything.
A referendum under the municipal land use law.
Well, on anything, on any part of this project, will we continue to have what normal rights we have for a referendum? Okay. Thank you. So did you say that this was a legality that we needed to do the redevelopment plan?
Prior to an area being declared an area in need of redevelopment.
Yeah, but why? This is my question: is why are we pushing to have this declared an area in need of redevelopment? Because
it's a dilapidated piece of property that's an eyesore. And as I mentioned to you that,
I understand that. Let me just correct you for a second. The thing is about the property. It's not about the building. So that property is not dilapidated. The building's dilapidated.
that's what the planner is being hired to do, is to analyze what you're talking about. So I see it as dilapidated and that there hasn't been any movement on it in 4 or 5 years, maybe longer. that's up to the planner to determine if it follows the letter of the law as it relates to being an area in need of redevelopment.
Yeah, but again, the redevelopment is on the piece of property. So is that property, after this building is knocked down or whatever, is that property a sellable piece of property? That's the piece that is in question. It's not that, is that building look run down? So I don't,
I mean, there are some very discrete conditions that can qualify for an area in need of redevelopment, which were just recently narrowed by the Supreme Court, actually. So if it doesn't fall within one of those categories, which these planners are being hired to determine whether it does or does not, then it doesn't fall within those, then it won't be eligible as an area in need of redevelopment.
but I don't even know why we're looking to see if it's eligible. That's a very valuable piece of property. I think there is proper zoning for that. We do not need to open up a area of redevelopment at all for that. I just really don't see the need to go down that path. And for us to even start going down that path, it most likely will end up there. I mean, if we want it to go there, it'll go there. I think it's a bad move for the town, and that's why I'm questioning what we're even trying to get out of doing that, and why not see what can be built there without declaring it in need of redevelopment. I don't think any property in Berkeley Heights currently should be in need of redevelopment. Every piece of property in Berkeley Heights is valuable and does not need to be treated as if it was in Newark. So they haven't mentioned anything about what's being built there.
There's no movement there. Yeah, 2019 was the last time we've heard from them, and we haven't heard from them since, but I've heard from a lot of residents that they're upset about the look of the property.
Okay, I would urge you all to table this and really take a look into what can be done without deeming the property in need of redevelopment, rather than going down this path. And I would suggest that I think would be very bad for the town to continue going, deeming all these properties in need of redevelopment, and then getting into that situation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I actually have a question. Doesn't this go hand in hand with the vacant property ordinance that we're looking at? No, or is it separate, as a separate animal?
Separate animal.
They're completely different criteria.
But if it's a vacant property, we'll be forced to register with the town. And we'll collect the fee so we can monitor the property better.
Thank you.
Yep, go ahead. Yes.
Good evening. Margaret Illis, 102 Twin Falls Road. And now instead of paying attention to what I'm talking about, I'm looking at the microphone. I'm also questioning the $4,000 expenditure for the planner to look at 311 Springfield Avenue for redevelopment. So considering the other financial needs that our township has, to spend $4,000 before anybody is even looking at it to develop it does not seem fiscally responsible to me. Secondly, I did hear something recently. I don't remember where. We talked about it a little bit on the planning board, that there was something being kicked around with that property. So the only times in my experience from sitting in the audience that we've looked at properties for redevelopment was things that the township had planned on rezoning or granting a pilot for. So that property is in the HB2 zone, which is housing business. It supports mixed use buildings. It supports single family homes. It supports commercial properties. So all of those things seem in line with what you would want to put there. I don't know why rezoning would be necessary. That's one reason why you would need to do a redevelopment. Otherwise, you would be granting a pilot. And what I've heard from the council repeatedly in the past 6 to 9 months is we don't need to do anything about any more affordable housing at this moment because we've met our obligations. So if we're not looking at a pilot and it's already in the HB2 zone, which would meet the other people could develop it. I don't know why we're spending $4,000. So I encourage council to vote against this. Thank you.
For your comments.
I actually have another question. Sorry, I'm from the dais. Alex, if you can answer this one. we don't do this, that property, if we don't ever get in contact with anybody that's an owner of the property, that could just sit there and just be like that for perpetuity, correct?
No one's required to develop their property.
The other thing is
Paying
just because
taxes,
we do this
right?
doesn't make the property owner have to do anything. It's just the problem is there's certain developers that will only look at properties that are deemed in need of redevelopment. So it doesn't generate an automatic
So,
interest just because.
You know what, let's do this. I think Keenan should really be here to explain this because I don't think any of us have the good explanation for this. So let's, unless somebody strongly objects, let's go ahead and table it for tonight so we can get Keenan
You
here.
want me to motion to table it?
Can I just make one more comment? It did sell recently, within
We do
the
it,
past
okay.
year. So it did change hands. I would assume it changed hands because somebody wants to develop it. So
Yeah.
That goes to my question, Alex, before was if they just buy it and they sit on it and they do it in perpetuity, that building could stay there until
would it
we're all.
fall under your
we're all gone.
abandoned,
Let's
would it
get-
fall under
let's
your
get Keenan in
abandoned?
here, let's end this discussion and get like some facts in front of us before we do talk about this any further.
Just want to clarify one thing with John, though, the vacant property registration ordinance in this case, because now it includes commercial property. They can't warehouse it without increasing fees every year by holding a property
Cost
vacant.
of mortgage.
But for them to do it, for them to just keep the property fallow, they have to register with the town. The fees increase exponentially every year if they keep it empty. And they have to keep it, maintain it. If not, we will come after them for maintaining the property.
That's where that comes in.